Well, good morning. It is Tuesday. It is going to be a hot one again today. Yesterday it got over 100 here in eastern North Carolina, and it's looking like it's going to do the same today. So wherever you are, it seems nationally we're hitting a heat wave. Summer's here, so just be careful out there. It's obviously a very worrisome time, particularly in the Middle East, with what has been going on in the last several days. I've thought, should I really get into it? Should I not? I've shared some of my thoughts on Facebook. I think I'm going to kind of set them aside because even though I'm trying to do my best to be objective, they could be taken potentially as not being objective. What I do want to caution people about, obviously, with what happens in the nature of war, there can be many different viewpoints on it. Obviously, there are a lot of people who advocate for doing everything to avoid war. Pacifism is something that we definitely see a lot of today, especially as it relates to isolationism. And so I can attest that regardless of my opinions about something, there are opposing views that I will respect and appreciate because I understand where they're coming from. They're coming from the perspective of, is it worth it? Is it worth the cost? Is it worth the risk? Is it worth the escalation? And those are all fair and reasonable criticisms that have to be considered. I do want to urge caution in how we present what we're thinking and to do our best to avoid the talking points and the efforts by others to align with viewpoints that either project moral relativism, which is very dangerous, or project other bigoted and hateful viewpoints such as anti-Semitism. And I have seen that from even people that I know in how they have communicated, for example, their disagreement with the president's decision to attack nuclear weapons production facilities in Iran. I've had conversations with people who are trying to understand, is it there that much dislike and hatred for our president that it leads them to find any reason or any justification to oppose anything and everything he does? I'm going to say yes. I've seen it before with other presidents. President Trump, whether you agree with him, like him, disagree with him, hate him, has not always done the best job of trying to build consensus and respect across the public, across the citizenry. He is a very polarizing individual. He tends to enjoy being a polarizing individual. He enjoys escalating. Dissension here domestically and globally. And even though, and I'll just go ahead and say it, personally, I think he made the right decision. He may not necessarily, and overall, I do think he's taking this matter much more seriously than if it were to happen during his first term. I also certainly understand why a lot of people out there still aren't going to trust him on this or anything else. That's just it. At the end of the day, I think that any president, regardless of party, if they were looking at this objectively and with reason and logic, would have made the same decision in regards to the operation that the U.S. was involved with over the weekend. Where we go from here, there's still a lot that has to be thought of. We got good news about the possibility of a ceasefire Monday afternoon, and then as we wake up this morning, that ceasefire was, of course, broken by Iran. They attacked Israel again, attacked civilian targets again in Israel, and Israel's prepared to retaliate, this time going after specific targets in Tehran. So it's not looking good right now. Obviously, from a domestic perspective, there are concerns about energy prices, particularly oil and gasoline prices. There was a lot of fluctuation yesterday. The true forecasters, those who watch it, those who have the historical perspective, are encouraging people to use caution in how they look at what's going on. They do expect there to be some ramp up in prices. We were already seeing a ramp up in prices due to the fact that it's summer and there's an increased demand due to vacation travel and other activities, and also some concerns about disruptions in refinement and other things. In general, the actions that Iran has taken to restrict oil transportation through the Strait of Hormuz do not affect our supplies directly, even though, yes, it could potentially affect the overall global price of oil. But they are saying that it's not going to be as significant of a spike in prices as some people are saying, just on the basis of how things have changed over time since the last time we had something like this. And it certainly will be nothing like the impact that we had from the OPEC embargo in 1973, 1974. We are producing far more oil domestically, and we're getting a lot more for every gallon of oil in terms of efficiency. So a lot of different things going on. Also, you will notice there, due to the heightened state of electricity demand, particularly right now in this very hot week, pretty much everybody in terms of a utility provider is pushing for conservation, particularly during those peak load periods in the afternoons. And so that's something to think about. If you need to run your air conditioner, the idea would be try to make sure all your lights are turned off. That only adds heat to the place anyway. Obviously don't run the stove, don't run the oven, those type of things. That can make a lot of sense. But it gets back to a concern that a lot of people are having right now, and it's been brought up, and it's a very fair point, how the rise of data centers and the demands on electricity that they place on systems only exacerbates the problem, in the fact that, particularly in high growth areas here in the South, that the production capacities of electricity have not kept up, the generating capacities have not kept up with residential growth or industrial growth, commercial growth. And now you add data centers into the mix, and it's just simply too much demand, not enough supply. Particularly times of the year like this here in the summer. So something that is going to need to be addressed sooner rather than later. And it'll be interesting to see what policies are adopted to facilitate that. But as you can see, kind of a challenging situation we find ourselves here on this Tuesday morning. So please be careful, please be safe, and take care.